to what I'm sure will be a powerfully moving, inspiring, and educational evening for all of us. I'm Mina Brewster, the health officer for St. Mary's County, and I'm so excited to welcome you this evening and to introduce our main speaker, Brandon Novak. Thanks to all of you who've taken the time to come together this evening and be a part of this really, really powerful event. Thank you to St. Mary's College of Maryland for partnering with our team at St. Mary's County Health Department in hosting this event tonight. And I wanted to give a special thank you to Stephanie Thomas from our health department, who is the main coordinator of tonight's event. I also want to mention that we're really excited to welcome A&E here tonight. They will be filming this event to feature for their new feature called Addiction Unplugged that will be out this fall. The many forms of substance misuse and the chronic illness of substance use disorder have been affecting our country and community members for generations. Things perhaps became more visible, though, in the past couple decades, especially as we ran into the opioid drug crisis. And we started seeing the impact of that crisis on our individuals and families across the country. In St. Mary's County, we've been fortunate to start seeing more recently some improvements in things like emergency department visits for substance use, in numbers and other data that we follow to kind of see what the picture of substance use is in our county. But this data doesn't tell the story. It doesn't tell the story of the persons and the families who are struggling every day with this illness. Every person counts, and our vital collective effort to instill hope and recovery in our community is for them and for all of us. Tonight's event is part of the St. Mary's Goes Purple initiative. St. Mary's Goes Purple is a campaign to educate our community about the chronic illness of substance use disorder with the goal of ending stigma, advocating for treatment, celebrating recovery, and promoting harm reduction practices in St. Mary's County. The more stories we share of recovery and the challenges people overcome, the more we can support and inspire all of us along the way. So a giant thank you and welcome to Brandon Novak, who is here to share his own powerful story with us today. Brandon is a recognized TV personality, a global recovery speaker, a certified intervention professional, and a person in long-term recovery. He relates to millions of people across this country, at least 1 in 4, who are directly affected by addiction in their family. By sharing his story, Brandon offers us all encouragement and understanding for those struggling with addiction, as well as the opportunity to better understand the disease of addiction and how we can support our friends, loved ones, and ourselves. Brandon represents someone who can face challenges, overcome obstacles, and not only turn their life around, but empower others to do the same. Please join me in giving a big St. Mary's welcome to Mr. Brandon Novak.
That's how you see how real my life was. When I end up having you look like in the long run and the shit you have to go through. This is just another reminder why I don't want to shoot dope anymore.
What's that, a school picture?
Yeah, with his American flag. You know, he's a cute kid with a normal childhood. You can see that.
Skateboarding, I lived it, I slept it, I breathed it, I dreamed it. From the day that I got my first skateboard to the day I put the first needle in my arm.
When he was like 10 years old, he was at Tony Hawk's house in California for the summer. Multiple times he'd get it.
Brandon Novak, he had made it to sort of the top of his game. Whenever you saw Brandon, you're like, whoa. That's really unbelievable for a kid to do that kind of thing.
The drugs came into play. It was such a gradual and slow process.
I found bongs and the roach clips, the little pink bags and the pills.
I definitely knew that he was having problems. He got into the really heavy stuff.
And my life was slowly going downhill. My priorities, my interests faded away. It's something I worked so hard for since I was 6 years old. I said, I'm done, and I quit. It was just so easy just to get high. I quit caring. I quit having hope in anything.
That was really the saddest part about Brandon's life. Had he maintained his skating, he could have really made a career out of it.
I have no more responsibilities, so I decided I needed to go out and celebrate. I was so sick, man. I celebrated by quitting my dream.
Sometimes when I would be in bed at night, I would hear him in the bathroom vomiting. That's how I knew he was into the drugs.
I wake up in the morning, the first thought is heroin.
The kid was tearing my heart out of my body, and I couldn't do anything about it.
My top priority was the cash for the dope.
I've taken him to meetings, to counselors. I bailed him out of jail from Colorado to Texas to New York. No sooner than we were home, he'd be right out on the front street making another drug deal.
She would tell me over and over, like, you're killing me. And I was so selfish.
I was literally going through hell. And I said, God, I'm asking one thing. Cure him or kill me, because none of us can live like this anymore. The drug dealers were calling and threatening my life. They were going to kill me because he was a drug and he owed them money. They were appearing at my house at night with guns after me. He said, are you Novak's mother? And I said, yes. He said, we want the money. I had to leave him and go somewhere where I would never let him invade my life again. He disappeared off the face of the earth. He was living on the streets. That's how bad it got.
I have nowhere to go, nothing to my name. I knew how bad I was, but the only thing that mattered was getting my fix. And once I got it fixed, everything was better again. As it's sick.
I think he's on heroin. Like, seriously, I mean, he's like really skinny and he looks like shit. I decided to take Novak in and try to help him out. I'd give him cameos on Viva La Bam because he had no problem just doing stupid shit. Novak, you in?
Wouldn't have any other way.
I've been shooting heroin to forget about all my problems. So not only am I overcoming the biggest fight of it all, which is quitting heroin, then I have to deal with all the problems that I've been avoiding and putting off by getting high for 6 years.
I felt like I was putting my family in danger and ourselves at risk. How do I know that his drug addict friends aren't going to come here? How do I know that he's not going to come and look here? I wanted to say that he was doing better. I knew he wasn't.
He's sitting there lying straight to my goddamn face, like I'm this idiot.
What kind of drugs you on now? Nothing. Nothing at all.
I hate to be negative because I'd like to believe him because he's my friend and I want to believe him.
I don't want to have you down, Brandon.
It seriously stressed me out, and just thinking about it stressing me out right now because he's a awesome dude.
The first time I met Novak was when we were filming the second Jackass movie.
Give me a 10!
He was nuts right away. You can say that about Brandon Novak. He makes an impression on you.
Yo, Novak.
Oh my God! He was a f***ed up, crazy drug addict who did gnarly stunts. I mean, he fit right in.
Oh. There were some problems.
It didn't take long to figure out that Brandon had a problem with drugs and alcohol. He was just always doing drugs, looking for drugs, more drugs, and then more drugs after that. Brandon had this book called Dream Seller, and it was an addiction memoir. I had to put it down. It was so frustrating for me. Because here's this book about a guy who knows so much about addiction, and is just unwilling to do anything about it.
My days are kind of somewhat numbered, man. I have hepatitis C, right? And I drink every day like it's going out of style. And it's not fair, man. It's not fair to my mother. I just got out of a year in prison. Where is the stay the off drugs, kids, man, because I up so bad. And I'm just so sick of lying, and I'm so sick of trying to figure out who I can tell the truth to and who I can't.
This drug called heroin. Now ask yourself, is it fun? Or does it look real pleasurable and pretty?
I went and bought two cemetery plots, one for me and one for Brandon. I just pray. I tell him, Brandon, please, I'm not going to get any younger. Please straighten your life out.
Statistics state, theoretical evidence dictates that I am to be high or dead right now. And the fact that I'm not is A, miraculous, equaling a miracle, and B, it defies logic. May 25th, 2015, I found myself at a position in life where I was divinely inconvenienced in just such a manner that the God of my understanding showed up and created just a big enough gap between me and the last needle that I stuck into my arm to allow me to have that moment of clarity to see what my life really looked like. And for the first time in my life, I became unaccepting of the outcome that I, Brandon Novak, continuously created for myself. May 25th, 2015, I found myself walking into my 13th inpatient treatment center. I had lost count of outpatients and detoxes. My mother had bought me a plot. People had begun to take life insurance policies out on me. May 24th, 2015, the day before I walked into that 13th inpatient treatment center, I found myself coming to after being on life support for 7 days at Mercy Hospital in Baltimore City. I had been medevaced to 4 different hospitals in 4 different states from 4 different overdoses. My mother, God bless her soul, had sold 3 homes to financially pay to go to 2 different treatment centers for me. In the beginning of my alcoholism, in the beginning of my addiction, she used to get on her knees and she used to pray to God, please God, do not let tonight be the night that I receive that call. Please, God, don't let tonight be the night that I receive that call that my son has succumbed to his addiction and he's no longer with us. Please don't let tonight be that night, God. To, at the end of my run, a 38-year-old homeless heroin addict who wants to kill himself on a daily basis, just terrified to hurt myself in the process. God bless my soul. My mother, she would get on the very same knees and talk to that very same God and say, please, God, let tonight finally be the night that I receive that call. Please, God, let tonight be the night that I finally receive that call that my son has succumbed to his addiction so I can finally know that once and for all, he's safe for the rest of his life, wherever he may be with you. How did I get here? How did I get here? I had goals, I had dreams, I had aspirations, I had ambitions. I was going to be somebody. How did I get here? My mother was a nuclear physicist on the board of Mercy Hospital, recently retired after 53 years of gainful employment, second longest employer in Mercy Hospital history. My brother My brother, by the time he passed the bar and graduated law school, he was literally blinded in student debt. Had no idea what his next move was going to be to get himself out of the position that he had created for himself. I can relate. Today currently resides as an attorney in the White House practicing pensions and benefits. My father never held a job a day in his life. He taught me one thing in life: if and when I go to prison, how to conduct myself. He was the kind of guy that was around just enough to let me know that he was not around. He acquired the liking of crack cocaine. His body shut down. He's no longer with us. So from a very young age, I could understand the psychic change that takes place upon an individual once they ingest a drink or a drug. I live with that after school special. I live with that cautionary tale of what not to do, or better yet, who to never become. But I'm here to share with you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, that unfortunately, the sad reality is the disease of addiction does not discriminate. From Yale or jail, the White House or the outhouse, the results are all the same. Today in the nation, 179 people will die as a direct result of an opioid overdose. 1 out of 3 people will be affected directly or indirectly. Me, on the other hand, I was blessed with the ability to get my first skateboard at the age of 7. That night when my mother put me to bed, she said, "Brandon, what would you like me to do with this skateboard?" I said, "I want it in bed with me." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because if I die, I want it to go with me to heaven." The moment that board touched my hand, I knew I was going to be a skateboarder for the rest of my life. I ate it, I breathed it, I slept it, I dreamt it. At 14, I was the first skateboarder ever to be endorsed by Gatorade. They're flying me to Chicago to the Quaker Oats building where they make Gatorade at the time. They take me to the warehouse where they do all these tests with the actual drink, and they put me on this treadmill, and they put Michael Jordan on a treadmill directly next to me, and they strap these EKGs to our chest and give us each Gatorade to see the effects that it has on different sports players. At 15, I'm touring the world with Pal Peralta. They're sending me prototype shapes that they're allowing me to design my potential pro model. I told you I had goals, I had dreams, I had aspirations, I had ambitions. I was going to be somebody. More importantly, what I was never going to be was my father. The reason why I share with you what my upbringing looked like at that point in time is because I want you to understand that my story is my story, and I'm married to my narrative because it's mine and it worked for me. I'm not going to come here and pretend to understand the pain that you may be enduring behind closed doors, or the things that you've seen or more or less went through. It's not my job to dissect or put your deal on display. What I'm going to do with you is I'm going to share with you my deal. And if you can find any similarities in what I might say, then maybe a connection might want to be had. I don't remember the first time that I hit that joint. I don't remember the first time that I sniffed that line. I don't remember the first time that I swallowed that pill, that I put the bottle to my lips. I wasn't the guy that found the drink, found the drug, indulged in the deal, and said, "Aha, I've now found the reason for which I will wake up and get out of bed for every morning." That's not my story. As a matter of fact, skateboarding did for me at a very young age what drugs and alcohol did for me at a later age. Right? You give me a skateboard at the age of 7, you put me in a room with the world's prettiest models. I'll not only believe that they've been waiting for me, but that they're dying to marry me. See, later on down the road in my alcoholism, drugs and alcohol produce that same delusional narrative. So I don't recall the first time that I partook in a drink or a drug, but what I do remember, as sure as the day is long, the moment, the very first moment that someone attempted to stand between me and it. Just like I'm holding this microphone in my hand, I can recall it like it just happened. The first time in my life that someone attempted to stand between me and a drink or a drug. And you're going to hear in my story that I'm very upfront, I'm extremely graphic, and I'm insanely descriptive. As a matter of fact, I keep my past married to my present, because the moment that this alcoholic forgets the pain that brought him through those doors of treatment center number 13, begging to God for one more chance, it's not a matter of if I'll return, but when I'll return. And unfortunately, anybody, any place, or anything that attempts to stand between me and a drink must and will go. And it's not personal. It's just business. Because the reality of my alcoholism is it possesses such a control over me that it does not care about how I feel about the things that I have to do to acquire another one, because I really don't want to have to hurt you to get it, but I'm sorry, I just can't say no. And I swear, my friend, it's not personal, it's just business. And what that looked like for me is I was on a tour with a bunch of pro skaters, and we were in Chicago, and we were doing a demo at a skate shop. I was caught with a handful of drugs by a professional skateboarder by the name of Mike Villala, and he said, "Brandon, get rid of the drugs or get off the tour." I go to the sewer, I throw the drugs in the sewer. Short story long, I finish the demo, I go back to the hotel, and I meet a woman, and she drives me back to the sewer, and I pull the drugs out of the sewer. I immediately get caught. I'm now kicked off the tour. Now, see, this delusional alcoholic brain that I possess, this one that lies to me in my own voice, that makes me believe the unbelievable, tells me the skateboarding world needs me, it cannot go on without me, and I am an asset. And the sad reality is the skateboarding world does not need me. It goes on quite fine without me, and I'm a liability. But see, when I come out here and I put my hand up and I say, "Hi, my name is Brandon, I'm an addict and I'm an alcoholic," all that simply means, do not miss this, all this simply means is that I'm defiant by nature, I hate authority, and I will not conform unless it becomes my idea. See, because I possess this job that places me in a lot of positions I don't like to be in, and it allows me to feel a lot of feelings I don't like to feel, and that job consists of knowing everything. So thank you kindly, St. Mary's, for suggesting to me what I could potentially do to maybe better and or save my life, but I'm going to kindly suggest why you should fuck off. Because I know. And the scariest thing about my story is that my resume states, it reads that I actually do know some things. Because I've done some things in life that people may accredit to success, happiness, potentially even dream of doing. But the reality is, May 25th, 2015, I'm walking into my 13th inpatient treatment center. Everything that I own consists of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, a stick of deodorant. It fits into this bag that doubles as my pillow. A needle, a spoon, and a restraining order. And I'm trying to figure out how I got here. And at that moment, it came to me, you know what I do know? Is that I don't know. And my very best thinking at best places me in a position like this where I'm a 38-year-old homeless heroin addict who spends his days standing on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Patterson Park, prostituting his body just to secure enough finances to acquire another bag of heroin. How did I get here? If you're anything like me and you're sitting in the audience and you're listening to my story and you're saying to yourself, whew, God bless that man. I'm so grateful he found the answer for which he's in search of. But like, that could never be me. That will never be me. I have goals. I have dreams. I have aspirations. Please don't miss what I'm about to say. Please do not miss this. My story was not my story either in the beginning. I promise you the story that I gave you at treatment center number 1, 2, 4, 6, and 8 looks drastically different than the story you're going to hear tonight after treatment center number 13 and 22 years of active addiction. They say a hard head makes for a soft ass, and I promise you my ass probably is the softest in this room. Everything that I share with you tonight is nothing that I knew. It's not like I woke up and I had this epiphany and life just made sense. That's not my story. My story is learned through a lot of hard-won experiences. And I'm here tonight to share with you my cautionary tale. Right? I'm here tonight to share with you my cautionary tale, one that does not consist of a drink or a drug, in a form of attraction rather than promotion. So if you're sitting in this audience and you're silently suffering or struggling with something that you do not want to share with your peers, it's okay. I get it. I've seen me do it. But if you're sitting in this audience and you're listening to me and you're silently suffering and you don't want to put your hand up, you don't want to out yourself, you don't want to look like that man, that woman, my God-willing agenda here tonight before you beautiful ladies and gentlemen is to share with you my message in a form of attraction rather than promotion. So if you're sitting there and you're struggling, by the time I'm finished my talk, you say to yourself, if that guy can do it, there's no reason why I can't. That's all I'm here tonight to do for you. Now I've abruptly been kicked off this skateboarding tour. The very same tour that I swore needed me, could not go on without me, and I am an asset too. The reality was it did not need me. It went on quite fine without me, and I was a liability. But guess what? I was the last person to realize that. Why? Because I possessed that job that consisted of knowing everything. Now I'm home and I have this newfound freedom, this unexpected time off, and see now, like, flights are no longer being booked. Tours are no longer being scheduled. Video parts are no longer being produced. Packages are no longer being sent. Because see, in order for me to achieve such simple things in life, it requires me to have conversations that consist of words like honest, reliable, and dependable, and they do not help me get one more. So I avoid it like the plague. 2 weeks into my newfound freedom, I'm woken up in the dawn of morning, and my mother throws the phone to me. She said, Brandon, phone. I put the phone to my ear, and it's my team captain from PAL, Peralta. And he said, Brandon, we have one of two options we can do with you. We could put you into treatment. You could save your life. You can continue to skate for PAL Peralta, or you could quit the team. From 7 to 16, I ate it, I breathed it, I slept it, I dreamt it, I became it. If I were to have died at that young age, I would have been the happiest child that ever walked the earth because I had received everything I ever dreamed of getting. And now, for the first time in my life, someone is attempting to stand between me and my drink and drug. Brandon, you can go to treatment, save your life, continue to skate for PAL, or you can quit the team. I don't have a breath of fresh air in my lungs when I said I quit. The disconnection from reality that's already taken place far before I've walked into my first treatment center is insane. I haven't even had the pleasure of walking into my first treatment center, and this thing has me so consumed that I can't even see it. So 2 or 3 more months go on just like this. And then one day my mother and my girlfriend come to me and they said, Brandon, we have a great idea for you. I said, what's that? They said, we'd like you to go to treatment. I had just turned down this offer from the gatekeeper of my dreams. Why in the world do you think I'd accept it from them? But I thought about it for a moment and I said, you know what? That's an amazing idea. A, I have the time. B, I'm going to report to said treatment center, and I'm going to report back to my mother and my girlfriend why I'm not you people, nor will I ever be. This was just an overreaction at best. You just caught me at a bad time, on a bad way, and a bad day. Tomorrow is going to be different. Strap me up to a polygraph. I will have every police officer in Maryland, let alone the nation, pat me on the back saying, Brandon, we wish everyone is as honest as you are. If so, this world will be a safer place to live in. That's how much I believe when I say to myself and my loved ones, my students, my professors, my boss, that tomorrow is going to be different. But unfortunately, I wake up tomorrow to repeat yesterday's actions, and I'm stuck in Groundhog's Day for 22 years. So as quick as I agree, miraculously, a bag appears and it's already packed. Car pulls up, I'm escorted to it. Mother and girlfriend dropped me off at the facility. I'm met outside by a very caring woman. She said, sweetheart, are you Mr. Novak? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, come with me, honey. And she takes me into this building and she walks me into this cafeteria. And this cafeteria is completely empty, not a person in sight. I follow her in. I'm in a room that's very similar, very eerily similar as this. There's these bright interrogation style lights shining down on me. I'm ill as a research monkey. I'm detoxing from heroin. And out of nowhere, this older black gentleman walks in. And he walks directly up to me. And he said, white boy, what are you doing here? I said, heroin. He said, how old are you? I said, 17. He said, do yourself a favor and don't turn 18 in a place like this. And as quick as he came, he left. He nor I had no idea the significance of that simple conversation was ever going to have on my life. Mind you, I entered into this facility simply proving a point why I didn't belong, because after all, you people were my father and I can't stand you. I entered into this facility only focusing on the differences, not the similarities. You know what I could tell you about that gentleman? Where the 4 teeth were placed in his mouth. Because at the time, I had all mine. He's black, I'm white. He's 70 to 75, I'm 17. He smokes crack. I successfully do heroin. I don't understand what you found funny about that. And I'm just trying to paint the very vivid, clear picture of the disconnection of my reality already at 17, and I haven't even entered in my first treatment center. He's homeless. I live with my mother and my girlfriend. God bless that man. I'm so grateful he found the answer for which he's in search of. You know what I can't tell you about that facility? My therapist's name. I can't tell you about those relapse prevention packets they're shoving down my throat. The healthy and unhealthy boundaries that they're instilling in me. Because if I could tell you about those things, that means that I can relate to being one of you people, and I want no part. You people are my father. As a matter of fact, I made it a point to excel at everything I did in my life to prove to my mother, to my brother, to my sister, that I would never become that bum. I successfully complete that 30-day treatment center. I I did not turn 18 in a place like that. That old man, what a fool. He had no idea what he was talking about. He thought he knew who I was or what I was capable of producing, just like the rest of you. What a fool. I didn't turn 18 just as he predicted. Don't lose me. Because I turned 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 27, 29, 32, 33, 34, 37, 38 in a jail or a treatment center. Every year I sit on whatever bed of whatever cell of whatever jail I happen to be in, or whatever bed of whatever room of whatever treatment center I happen to be in, and I think back to that older gentleman and say to myself, maybe if me, Brandon Novak, just would have listened to him with an open mind and an open heart, I would not continuously find myself in this situation year after year after year after year. Meaning that it was fully self-induced. I had now created or painted this picture for what you view me in. Now, in between all these birthdays, in between all these years, I'm in and out of treatment. I'm in and out of treatment, and I'm in and out of treatment, and I'd go into these facilities, and I'd loiter. I'd loiter with the intent to recover. See, because I'd be assigned this therapist who was always quite easy on the eye, and my delusional alcoholic brain always told me that this therapist was dying to marry me. So I'd show up extra early for sessions. The model rehab client, I'd run classes, I'd be the sober compatibility buddy. Come early, stay late. And they'd say to me without fail, she'd say, okay, Mr. Novak, I'm gonna need you to get a sponsor. No problem, check. Okay, Mr. Novak, I'm gonna need you to find one of these 12-step meetings that you like to attend, and I'm gonna need you to go there regularly, check. Mr. Novak, I'm also gonna need you to acquire a bunch of like-minded people such as yourself that are trying to achieve the same thing, which is just to get another day sober, check. What I don't think that this therapist realizes is I was not the kid that would show up late to class in fear that you are staring at me. I was the kid that would show up late to class believing that you've been waiting for me. So everything that she's suggesting that I do is like a Monday morning. Get a sponsor. Find a place where you guys meet regularly. Attend that place. Hang out, fellowship, create friends. That's what I do. And then she said, oh, Mr. Novak, but before you leave my office, I'm going to need you. I'm going to have to need you to experience those 12 steps. I'm beginning to sense a theme of overreaction, for Christ's sakes. But now for the life of me, it's Christmas Eve, 2006. 38 degrees outside. I'm in a shooting gallery in West Baltimore. I'm huddled up in the corner. I have a 3X white t-shirt on with a pair of 40-size jeans and some Timberland boots. I'm huddled up in the corner. I have my arms into my shirt over my knees, and my head into my shirt, and I'm because that's the only thing I can do that produces heat. How did I get here? What I've learned in my life is, see, I've been sober long enough now to look back and recognize the synchronicity in life's events that have led me to the right here and right now, which proved to me the God of my understanding is oh so real and has been doing for me so much more than I could ever conceive. The reality of what my life is, I told you, I didn't come in here and just have this epiphany and say, I got it. What I've learned in my life is that it's all in retrospect, lived forward and learned backwards. How did I get here? It's Christmas Eve. I'm huddled up in a corner of a shooting gallery in West Baltimore. Borderline freezing to death. How did I get here? I got here because I sat there with a closed mind and a closed heart, comparing out, focusing only on the differences, not the similarities. All while possessing this job that consists of knowing everything, refusing to conform because I can't stand authority. How did I get here? See, now I trip and I fall into these TV shows, Viva La Bam, and these movies, Jackass, and these movies break box office records every time they enter. TV shows wildly successful. But now, just like in that skateboarding world, in this Jackass world, they say if we book him the flight, we make the flight. Let's say we book him the flight and he makes the flight. What condition will he be in when he gets here? Let's say we book him the flight and he makes the flight. It's the same thing that's going to happen as last time, where we catch him in the bathroom dead on the ground with a needle hanging out of his arm. It's not a good look for the work world. But this delusional alcoholic brain that I have, that lies to me in my own voice, making me believe the unbelievable, tells me the Jackass world needs me. It cannot go on without me, and that I am an asset. The sad reality is it does not need me. It goes on quite fine without me, and I'm a liability. But unfortunately, I'm the last person to realize that. Now, see, my paychecks are now being diverted to my second ex-fiance because, see, clearly they have a pattern of getting between me and my drug. And although I love them more than anything in this world, I had no option but to remove them from the equation. I really wish it didn't play out that way, but it's not personal, it's just business. My mother's a nuclear physicist. My brother's an attorney in the White House. My father died as a direct result of the disease of addiction. First skateboarder endorsed by Gatorade. Doing trial tests with Michael Jordan in the lab. Touring the world with some of the best professional skateboarders in the world. In these movies that break box office records. Have done some things that people would equate to success, happiness, potentially even dream of doing. But the stark, sad reality is I've now been in 8 inpatient treatment centers. I've began to lose count of outpatients and detoxes. My mother spent Mother's Day buying 2 plots, one for me and one for her. I've been medevaced to 2 different hospitals in 2 different states from 2 different overdoses. I'm not going back to treatment center number 12. Why would I waste my time or yours? What is number 12 going to teach me that number 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1 missed? See, because the reality is I don't believe anybody in addiction gets here because we took the short bus to school. Quite the contrary. I believe we end up here because we're too smart for our own good. And then I'll sit in a seat of a 12-step meeting that potentially has the ability to save my life. And if I'm not vigilant enough, I will outthink myself right out of that seat. Why would I go to treatment center number 12? Pride myself on being an outside-the-box thinker, come from better, know better. Live with that after-school special, that cautionary tale of the man I would never become because I watched what happened to Jerome. See, my father, Jerome, was the nicest guy in the world. Everybody loved Jerome. But when Jerome didn't come home to make dinner at 5:30 and we heard him and his biker buddies pull in the driveway at 3:30, the keys hit the lock, we shook like leaves because we didn't know what we were in for. So you've lost your mind if you think I'll become that man. Why would I go back to treatment center number 12? I have a plan. I have a plan. I'm going to move to Helsinki, Finland. I don't understand what you think is funny about that. I'm going to move to Helsinki, Finland. It's literally across the world. They don't even speak my language. I'm going to go there. I'm going to regroup. I'm going to rebrand. I'm going to reassess. I'm going to reevaluate. I'm going to redo life because, see, I don't like the results that I'm receiving in Westchester, Pennsylvania or Baltimore, Maryland. I jump on a plane at Philly. I fly to Helsinki. I arrive at the airport. A car service takes me to the Four Seasons. See, because from a very young age, my mother used to tell me, show me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. What's transcended to me, ending up in one of my facilities and thoroughly believing that a therapist told me social acceptability equals personal recovery. So my mother instilled in me as a child, show me who you walk with, I'll tell you who you are. Me believing that I heard, right, my alcoholic brain creating this delusional narrative that supports my relapsed behaviors. Believing that a therapist told me social acceptability equals personal recovery. So as long as the woman is pretty enough, the home is big enough, the car is new enough, or the account is high enough, I gotta be doing well. All along trying to fill this internal void with the external solution. I go to the Four Seasons because what alcoholic would stay at the Four Seasons? I go to the concierge desk, they take my stuff upstairs, I beeline it directly to the lobby bar. I pass these businessmen in these expensive suits having a meeting in all these different languages. Show me who you walk with, I'll tell you who you are. Social acceptability equals personal recovery. I'm now at the lobby bar. I order a glass of wine followed by a second. There's 4 glasses to a bottle. I've now graduated to the bottle, and I'm slid a piece of paper with a phone number on it. I dial the number. I'm now having black tar heroin delivered to me in abundance. I go into the bathroom. I'm doing what I do, and I decide to call my sponsor. One of those guys that one of those therapists I believe that was dying to marry me had me connect with. And I called Lex and I said, Lex, how did this happen? I was not supposed to do what I was doing in Westchester or Baltimore here in Finland. How did this happen? He said, if you have a second, I'd like to share with you something. But I know you're a very busy man with a really full itinerary. And after all, these international calls can become quite pricey. What, Lex? He said, I guess you skimmed over the part where we talked about geographical change not equating to recovery. You can't shake your shadow. You take you with you everywhere you go. I put you in Finland, you shoot heroin. I put you in a church in St. Mary's next to the water, you shoot heroin. Your mother dies, you shoot heroin. Your son's born, you shoot heroin. These therapies, these clinicians, they talk about this word trigger. Triggers are when my eyelids open. I can make any time, feeling, or sensation make sense to shoot a bag of heroin over. I've seen me do it. He said, I want you to do me a favor. He said, I want you to stop what you're doing. I want you to take that needle out of your arm and I want you to lift your head up and stare directly into the mirror in front of you and tell me what you see. He said, better yet, don't say a goddamn word. I'm going to tell you what you see. You are staring directly into the eyes of your problem. Because see, Novak, we also went over this part in the book where we talked about the drink or the drug has nothing to do with your problem. The drink or the drug is the solution to your problem. Your problem is your thinking, your attitude, and your behavior, which is why you continuously repeat this behavioral pattern. And right now, you're allowing me, your sponsor, to stand between you and your solution. One of the rare handful of moments in time that you're allowing someone to get between you and your solution. And at this moment, you feel like a stranger in your own skin. And you're trying to figure out who the fuck let you in and why. I said, you know what, Lex? These international calls are quite pricey. Because again, my delusional alcoholic brain will create these delusional narratives that only exist up here, only and as long as they're supporting my alcoholic or drug addict behaviors. Because the disconnection from reality and abnormality is astronomical. The abnormal has far become the normal. So the fact that you laugh at my idea to moving to Finland to escape my disease furthermore proves to me why you guys are simply morons. So I go back to the concierge desk. I have them retrieve my articles. Don't even make it to my room. They bring my bag back. I'm now taken back to Helsinki airport, which in turn I fly back to Philadelphia because clearly Finland was the problem. My mother's a nuclear physicist. My brother's an attorney in the White House. My father died as a direct result of the disease of addiction. First skateboarder endorsed by Gatorade, doing these trials with Michael Jordan. Touring the world with professional skateboarders by the names of like Bucky Lasik and Tony Hawk, and Steve Caballero, Mike Vallely. Have now ended up in these movies that break box office records, TV shows wildly successful. On the flip side of that coin, I've been in 12 inpatient treatment centers. I've lost count of outpatients and detoxes. My mother has bought me a plot. People have far started to take life insurance policies out on me. I'm about to end up on life support for 7 days. I've now been medevaced to 4 different hospitals in 4 different states from 4 different overdoses. The 3 homes have been sold for me to enter into 2 treatment centers. My days are spent standing on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Patterson Park, praying to God that lawyer who drives that burgundy Cadillac gets off at 5 p.m. as opposed to 5:30 because he pays me good money for my body. How'd I get here? I got here because I sat there with a closed mind and a closed heart, comparing out, focusing only on the differences, not the similarities. See, because I possess this job that consists of knowing everything. The complexity of my alcoholism runs deep. And I'm going to give you an example. See, when I put my hand up and I say, hi, my name is Brandon, I'm an alcoholic. Hi, my name is Brandon, I'm an addict. All that means is I've been diagnosed with a disease that if left untreated equals death. It's a fatal disease. That's an absolute fact. Pull out any phone, any medical dictionary. I'm not going to debate and or talk to you about that when I'm done my talk because it's a waste of time. Absolute fact. I've been diagnosed with a disease that if left untreated equals death. It's a fatal disease. But the scary thing about that is it's the only fatal disease that I possess that lies to me in my own voice, making me believe that I do not have that disease. See, it's not like your voice appears in my head and says, Novak, you're not an addict, you're not an alcoholic. And I'm like, stranger danger. It's my voice in my head telling me that I do not possess this disease that I've accepted the diagnosis from years ago. Follow me here. Diagnose me with HIV. I'm rushing to the hospital to get medication. I don't want to die. Fatal disease. Diagnose me with cancer. I'm rushing to the hospital to get chemo. I don't want to die. Fatal disease. Diagnose me as an addict or an alcoholic. I need a glass of wine or a bag of heroin to figure out what the hell's wrong with you for diagnosing me with said disease. Just as fatal as the first 2 diseases, but left to my own devices, I will put this microphone down, go get into my car, drive to my bank. It's been quite some time since I've indulged in a drink or a drug, which means I've been able to save a lot of money. I'll pull an undisclosed amount of cash out. and I'll drive right around the way and buy as much heroin and cocaine that I can physically fit into my arm tonight. And the scariest thing is that I can make those idiotic decisions make complete sense to me right now. And if you're sitting in this audience and you're saying, what in the world would allow him to make such a foolish decision? I mean, the man's a motivational speaker. He's an interventionist. He owns sober living homes. He owns a treatment center. He's a person in long-term recovery. He has a sponsor. I am like the face of recovery. And literally like this, I can put this microphone down, get in my car, go to the bank, get the money, go around the way, and have a needle in my arm within an hour. And if you're asking yourself what in the world would allow him to do such a foolish thing, it's so simple. Brandon only attends Brandon's Anonymous. Brandon only sponsors Brandon. And Brandon is Brandon's God. And when those three things are connected, it's not a matter of if, but when I repeat my history. And now, see, I'm not here tonight to give you a bunch of educated guesses or hypotheses of what may or may not happen with what decision I make. I'm telling you my story of my 22-year dance with my disease of alcoholism and how it played out for me time and time and time again. Because I told you, everything's in retrospect. Live forward and learn backwards. And it's so easy for me to see today, with coming up on 8 years of continuous sobriety, looking back, that all I did for the better part of 22 years was simply rearrange the furniture on the Titanic. My ship sank every time. So the man that you see here today simply arrived by doing process of elimination, but backwards. And the last thing I tried, ironically, happened to be the first thing that worked. So I'm not ready to go to treatment center number 13. I have a plan. I'm going to write a book. I have no high school diploma. I was kicked out of the 12th grade as a direct result of drugs and alcohol. Felt no need, have never received a GED. Until after I wrote my first book, I was incarcerated, and in the penitentiary, I decided I'd kill some time by taking my GED. But I'm going to write a book. I go to the Barnes & Nobles, I pull out a favorite author of mine, and I look at the outline of his book, and his book's written in 12 chapters, so I pen to paper, write 12 chapters. I have a very intelligent co-author. He's a professor. He has letters in front and behind his name. I take my 12 chapters, handwritten, pen to paper. I hand them to the professor. The professor, AKA my co-author, turns 12 chapters into 23. We then acquire a literary agent through my best friend, Bam Margera's manager. My literary agent shops my manuscript around, a whole lot of no's. 1 or 2 yeses. We come to an agreement with Kensington publisher Citadel Press. I'm now a published author who's written an autobiography addiction memoir. This book begins to do insanely well, selling hundreds of thousands of copies. Literally just revised. You people should understand this, you college folk. Literally revised in its 12th edition. Anyone who understands anything about the literary world, making it past the first edition is slim to none, and slim's generally out of town. I've written this autobiography, this addiction memoir. It's recently revised in its 12th edition. Hundreds of thousands of copies from all over the world. Bam, 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 bam. I'm receiving letters from all over the world of people like you saying, Novak, I read your book. I did want my story to get as bad as yours. I have 30 days. People like you, Mom, saying, I read your book. I understand when my daughter picks the bottle as opposed to coming to have dinner with me on the weekends. It's not that I'm a bad mom. It's that she suffers with the disease of alcoholism. My delusional alcoholic brain just told me I wrote the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous or the basic text of Narcotics Anonymous. And for anyone in this room who does not understand what that is, number one, thank God. But number two, it's like the the Bible to a holy roller. It's our guide of living, our way of life. And I just believe that I've wrote it. But what I forgot to share with you is I wrote this book while being heavily under the influence of wine and cocaine. The night my book's being released in Times Square in New York City, my literary agent's there, my manager's there, the publishers are there. My family comes out, believes that maybe I've pulled it together and I am going to be somebody. But I don't have any heroin that night. I don't have any heroin. And I looked to my assistant, CJ, and I said, CJ, I'm going to need $100. And he said, over my dead body, I will not give you money that will kill you, or let alone ruin yet again another chance. And I said, CJ, do I need to remind you whose payroll you're on? He said, I don't care. Now, see, I have a buddy of mine with me from Baltimore as well. And see, he doesn't feel good either. And he's sitting over there, and I'm standing here, and all of a sudden, they start wheeling my books in these boxes on this dolly. And now they're now setting up this display case of my books. And I take a look at my buddy who doesn't feel good. He's withdrawing as well. And we take a look at each other. We don't say a word, but we have that complete conversation, that language of the heart untreated, if you will. And with that, he stands up, uniform precision. I walk over, he walks over. I grab 2 boxes of my books. He's just grabbed 2 boxes of my books. We've now just stolen 4 boxes of my own autobiography addiction memoirs from my own book release party. Run back to Penn Station, New York City, catch the next train back to Baltimore, sell the 4 boxes to 2 different stores, acquire the money, go buy more heroin. How did we get here? We finish shooting the heroin. He goes his way, I go mine. I get on a train. I go back to Philadelphia. I go to Westchester. I go to put my key in my lock, and see, a common theme in my story is that locks stop working. I put the key in the lock, and the lock doesn't work. So I do the next best thing, and I kick the door in. And when I kick the door in, the home is completely empty. She had taken our paintings. She had taken our furniture. She had taken my clothes. She had taken her clothes. She had taken our cats. And I found myself lying on this floor in a fetal position, crying uncontrollably. And at that very moment, it dawned on me. This home is now a spitting image of what I have become. This big empty shell of a house now consoles this big empty shell of a man lying on the floor in a fetal position, crying uncontrollably. And guess what? The only thing I can think of at that very moment is that older gentleman from the very first treatment center that said, do yourself a favor and don't turn 18 in a place like this. He's the only thing that's dancing through my mind at that moment, because without fail, it was impossible. It was physically, humanly, and mentally impossible for me to deny or minimize the severity of not even my disease, but the situation I found myself in yet again. And all I could think is, if I just would have listened to that man with an open mind and an open heart, I would not be here yet again. And with that, my phone starts vibrating. And I'm lying on the floor, crying uncontrollably. I pull the phone out of my pocket, and it's my mother. My mother loved me when I didn't love myself. My mother prayed for me when I didn't pray for myself. My mother fed me when I didn't feed myself. She showed up for me when I didn't show up for myself. There is nothing in this world I would not do for that woman. I love her more than life itself. And my phone goes off, and it's my mother. And usually people have a hard time remembering this, but I think a lot of you will, since of where we're at. If you guys remember around 8 years ago when the police in Baltimore City killed that young black man by the name of Freddie Gray. My mother lives around 15 blocks from where that incident occurred. And if you can remember, at that time, Baltimore City was like the movie The Purge. They were robbing, they were looting, they were shooting, they were stealing, they were burning blocks down, they were burning police cars down. They brought in the National Guard who stood on every corner or every other corner with a machine gun and a tank, and they infused an 8 o'clock curfew. No one was to be on the streets. And my mother called me uncontrollably, crying, and she said, "Brandon, I'm terrified for my life. Can you please come make sure they don't burn my house down?" There's nothing I wouldn't do to make sure she was as safe as humanly possibly could be, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. There's nothing I won't do for her. And I thought to myself, that's it. I get up, I walk out that door. My plan is to, in theory, I'm going to jump on a train from 30th Street Station. I'm going to come back to Baltimore. I'm going to go to her house, and I'm going to make sure that woman is as safe as could possibly be. In reality, my disease of addiction said, "That's real cute, sweetheart. That's real cute, sweetheart. Let me tell you how your day is going to play out. Let me tell you what you're going to do. Mr. Save the Day, Son of the Year, let me show you what you're going to do. You are going to jump on that train. You are going to go back to Baltimore. You're going to go to your mother's house. You're going to walk up into her 78-year-old self's bedroom. You're physically going to remove that woman from that bedroom. You're going to commandeer that bedroom. You're going to stay in that bedroom for 3 months. You're going to leave that room once a day. Every morning at 4:30 a.m., your eyes are going to open religiously. You're going to gently sneak down the stairs because see what's going to happen at this point in time. Your mother's going to take to sleeping on the living room sofa directly next to the front door in the house. Because see, when I shoot heroin, I like to chain smoke. And when I chain smoke and shoot heroin, I fall asleep. And my mother's in fear that I'm going to burn her house down. So her next best thought is, if I'm chain smoking and shooting heroin in her bedroom and the house catches on fire, if she's sleeping on the sofa directly next to the front door, she has a chance to make it out alive. And you're going to sneak down those steps every morning at 4:30 a.m. And you're going to know exactly what step to step on, because God forbid you step on the wrong step and it makes a noise. And she says, "What are you doing? Can you make me something to eat?" "Not right fucking now. This isn't personal. It's just business, Mom." And you're going to make it to the bottom of those stairs, and you're going to get on all four, and you're going to army crawl over to the living room sofa, AKA her bed. And this hand's going to grab her purse, and this hand's going to grab the bell that she attached to her purse. And you're going to gently pull that purse to you, because God forbid that bell makes a noise and she wakes up and says, "What are you doing in my purse?" Don't ask. Don't ask. Please, Mom, don't ask. It's not personal. It's just business. Please, Mom, not right now. And without fail, for 3 months straight, you're going to steal her debit card. And you're going to go to the corner store bodega, and you're going to hit the ATM for $180. 3 months straight, never missed a beat. You're going to go into the way, you're going to cop. And on one particular day, I'm coming back to my house, and I go to put the key in my mother's lock, and guess what? The lock doesn't work. Now, see, I love my mother. I would never kick her door in. Do you hear what I just said? I love her. I would never kick her door in. But I have no problem making her sleep on the sofa directly next to the front door in fear for her life. I have no problem stealing her debit card, taking $180 out every day. I have no problem making her buy me a plot, but God forbid I kick her door in. And on this particular day, I go to put the key in the lock doesn't work, so I politely knock on the door. And with that, my sister had drove in, and she had physically walked my mother up to her bedroom, which had now been converted into my shooting gallery. See, because ignorance is bliss, my mother did not want to see her son kill himself on a layaway plan, one bag of heroin at a time. But on this day, my sister felt that it was best that she see the reality of my situation for what it was. And she walked her up into her bedroom. And on this day, her bedroom looked like a murder scene. There's blood on the ceilings, there's blood on the walls, there's needles, there's cookers, there's bags. If you're sitting in here, you can't relate, thank God. If you're sitting in here and you say, that could never be me, just remember, my story was not my story either in the beginning. And if you're sitting in here and you can relate, thank God you're sitting in here and not there. And with that, she packed up all my belongings and put that into my bag. And now I'm met at the door with my mother and my sister, and my mother's crying uncontrollably, and my sister hands me my bag, and my mother looks at me and she said, Brandon, it never gets easier when I share this. She said, Brandon, I'm sorry, but you have to go. You have to go. I will no longer love you to death. And I looked at her, and my words held no more weight. The writing was on the wall. I wasn't even going to try to walk my way out of this. And I looked at her, and all I could say was, Mom, do you hate me? She said, sweetheart, I'll never hate you, but I will never love you to death anymore. You have to go. My mother's a nuclear physicist. My brother's an attorney in the White House. My father died as a direct result of the disease of addiction. First skateboarder endorsed by Gatorade. Traveling the world with Pal Peralta, such as the legends of Tony Hawk, Bucky Lasik, Steve Caballero, Mike Vallely. In these movies that break box office records. Autobiography, addiction memoirs sold hundreds of thousands of copies. Have done some things in life people equate to success, happiness, potentially even dream of doing. The reality of what my life looks like. Today, I'm a 38-year-old homeless heroin addict standing on the stoop of my mother's house as she hands me everything that I own. And everything that I own consists of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant. It fits into that bag that turns into my pillow. A needle, a spoon, and with that, a police officer comes around the corner. He said, "Are you Mr. Novak?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "This is for you." I open it up and it's a restraining order. He said, "I promise to God on my life, the next time I catch you on your mother's premises, I will not be so kind to you." How did I get here? How did I get here? Please, somebody tell me. I got here because I sat there with a closed mind and a closed heart, comparing out, proving a point why I didn't belong, focusing only on the differences, not the similarities, because see, I was unteachable and I possessed this job that consisted of knowing everything. Not to mention I possessed this delusional alcoholic brain that lies to me in my own voice and it makes me believe the unbelievable. Paired with the fact that I'm too smart for my own goddamn good, and every time I end up in an institution that has the potential to save my life, I outthink myself right out the door. I take my worldly belongings and I'm walking up the street and my phone goes off on social media and it's a woman and she DMs me and she said, "I read your book, it saved my life." I could care less, I don't want mine right now. She said, "What do you say about an all-exclusive paid trip to Fort Lauderdale?" I said, "No problem. I need some heroin, some cocaine, some Xanax, and some wine." She says, "Done." Red flag number 1. My book saved her life, but she's going to give me substances that kill mine. But again, I'd much prefer it that way. I do a little bit more research. I realize she lives in a hotel. That's not a good look either. I do a little bit more research. I see that she's like a lady of the night or a dancer. I've seen me become both of those things for $10, so I have no problem with any of that. But see, she has two requirements that I must fulfill when I touch down in Fort Lauderdale. When I get there, she wants to party, and she wants to make love, for lack of better words. Now, see, I don't know about anybody in this audience, but when I do heroin, I sleep. So I know that I'm going to wear my welcome out really fast with this woman. Because after all, she's paying for the airfare, she's paying for the food, she's paying for my drugs. Come on. But see, what I forgot to share with you is that I am to see my parole officer tomorrow morning. My parole officer's name is Mike Pfeiffer. His nickname is Maxim Out Matt. His nickname is Maxim Out Mike. You say your name wrong, he's violating you and sending you back. He's that kind of guy. Now, see, the conditions of my parole are that I'm supposed to be in Pennsylvania. I'm not supposed to leave the state of Pennsylvania. I'm supposed to remain clean and sober. I'm supposed to be in his office at 8:30 a.m. and I'm supposed to produce a clean urine. What my life really looks like is I'm in a shooting gallery in Baltimore City. I have a needle hanging out of my arm. I'm about to head to BWI Airport to catch a red-eye flight to Fort Lauderdale to get these drugs from this woman. And if I piss into a cup, it will light up like a Christmas tree. But nonetheless, I possess that delusional alcoholic brain that lies to me in my own voice, and it makes me believe the unbelievable. And what it tells me is, don't worry, Novak. Get dressed accordingly. Hurry up and get to Fort Lauderdale. Get what you need to get to from that woman, and you'll be able to make it back in plenty of time to be in Chester County at 8:30 a.m. to produce a clean urine for Mr. Pfeiffer. Even if I have a jet, that's physically impossible because there's no way that I'm producing a clean urine ever. But nonetheless, I believe that it's obtainable. The disconnection from reality is insane. So I get dressed accordingly, right? Because how you see me, how you view me has to be how I'm doing. So I put these at one point in time, nice pair of dress slacks if you overlook the cigarette hole burns. I put this nice button-up shirt on. But see, I don't have these underwear on because like I'm a homeless heroin addict. So I don't take these underwear off and wash them and find an imaginary dresser, an imaginary alley. I am a heroin addict. I don't do that. And I have these shoes on, these at one point in time, nice pair of Brooks Brothers shoes, but I lost a shoestring along the way, if you know what I mean. So I'm on a tight timeline. I have to get to BWI to catch this red-eye flight. But before I do that, I got to cop a few bags from the boys because I don't want to be sick on this flight. Now, see, on this particular evening, I got over there a little later than I would have liked to, and it was a different crew serving. And I ran up and I gave them the money. And when I gave them the money, they saw fit to rob me as opposed to serve me. Now, when they robbed me, they ripped my front and my back pockets completely out. Now, my front and my back are completely exposed. They ripped my shirt open. The only button that stays buttoned is this very top button, and I got these shoes on with one shoestring. I'm now roaming the streets of West Baltimore looking like a gay East LA Cholo gangbanger. So that does not go as planned, so I hurry up and I get to the airport because after all, I'm on a tight timeline, and I get up to the ticket counter. And when I met with the woman behind the counter, she takes one look at me and she says, "Mr. Novak, are you under the influence of anything?" And I said, "Absolutely not." She said, "I do not believe that." She said, "I believe that you are, and you will not fly for 3 days." Not the next morning or the next flight out. 3 days. Two things I've learned in my career is you'll never win a fight or an argument with a judge or a TSA airport security agent. What they say goes. Remember how I started my talk where I said that I found myself in a position in life where I was divinely inconvenienced. In just such a manner, the God of my understanding showed up and created just a big enough gap for me to see what my life really looked like was, and for the first time in it, I was no longer accepting of it. This is that moment. Don't lose me. I'm at the counter. The woman denies me access to board this flight. And what my perception of this conversation is this. The woman knows who I am. Her kid's an addict, and she's blaming her kid's disease on me. How dare her piss on my parade? The disconnection from reality. The truth is, no one dressed the way that I was dressed on that moment of time in that day would be allowed to board a flight, let alone walk into a college. What I didn't know to be true today that I clearly see now is that the God of my understanding showed up and dressed up in the form of a TSA airport security agent and did for me what I could not do for myself. I did not want to get on that plane. My heart was beating 1,000,000 miles an hour like I shot 20 kilos of cocaine. I did not want to get on that plane. I knew it was going to end bad, but my disease said, when I want to know what you feel or how you're doing, I'll ask. Till then, get in line. And I'm in line, and she denies me access. Refuses me to fly for 3 days. I get out of line, and I call that same sponsor that I called in Finland. I said, Lex, I'm stranded at BWI Airport, and I want to kill myself. He said, no. What you're going to do is you're going to get on a train. You're going to come back to Philadelphia. You're going to come to 30th Street Station. You nut jobs. Remember in the beginning, you people were my father. I was not buying what you were selling. I was not drinking your Kool-Aid. You recovering addicts, you recovering alcoholics, you're going to leave your loved ones. You're going to leave your families. You're going to leave your children. Memorial Day 2015. You're going to drive to the 30th Street Station, and you're going to pick this hopeless, helpless alcoholic up. You allow me to spend the night at your house. You take me to see my parole officer the very following morning. My parole officer who promised me if I ended up back in that chair, he was going to violate me, no questions asked. He took a look at me. He said, son, are you ready? He said, son, are you tired? I said, Mr. Pfeiffer, if you give me one more chance, I will not disappoint you. He sent me back to the same facility that I had been to 4 previous attempts out of my 13 overall. Without fail, I sit in the same chair with the same intake coordinator. She doesn't skip a beat. She gives me the same conversation. Okay, Mr. Novak, your insurance will cover you for 90 days. Now, see, in the past, at that point in our conversation, I'd have a rebuttal of, in theory, 90 days sounds great, but in reality, I'm more of like a 45-day kind of fella. This job to fulfill, this state to go to. And she would gently laugh as you did and say, sweetheart, you have no idea. Anything and everything that you put in front of your recovery does not or will not matter because it will go. See, Memorial Day 2015, for the first time in my life, I had finally been demoralized in just such a fashion from drugs and alcohol. I had finally been beaten into that state of reasonableness. That when I'm sitting in the same chair with the same intake coordinator, without fail, she gives me the same convo, bam, right off the tip of her tongue like she'd been waiting for me. Okay, Mr. Novak, your insurance covers you for 90 days, but the difference on this day is that when she gives me the offer, I can't even come back with a counter offer. All I can do is shake my head yes. For the first time in my life, and thank God, I had finally been beaten speechless by my disease of addiction. I was done. I was tired. I couldn't talk. She said, sweetheart, you're in no condition to do your intake. Get up to detox. I'll see you in 4 days. I grabbed my bag, my 8 scarves, my 2 jackets, my 3 socks, my stick of deodorant, the needle, the spoon, the restraining order. I walked my gay East LA Cholo gangbanging self up to detox. And I make it to the door, and I'm met by a 19-year-old tech who goes by Brian. And Brian said, Mr. Novak, you're back. I said, aren't you a genius? You don't miss a beat, do you, Brian? And Brian says to me, Mr. Novak, I regret to inform you, but your clothes are not rehab-oriented. You need some underwear. You need some sweatpants. You need some slides. And I remember you caught like sober people saying things like, a grateful alcoholic will never drink again, and a grateful addict will never use again. And it didn't make sense until it made sense. And on this day, as I'm having a 19-year-old kid reprimand me about putting underwear on, I found myself for the first time in my life praying to myself, because God forbid, remember I said if you're sitting in here suffering in silence, I can relate. I found myself praying to myself because God forbid anyone heard me say this out loud, but I was saying to myself, please, God, just let me find a pair of underwear. And Brian said, don't worry, Mr. Novak, that's no problem. Come with me to the basement. We're going to go to the donations room and see if we can find you some used underwear. I think that might be the first time that I'm going to agree with your laugh tonight. Because I don't know if you're aware that my mother's a nuclear physicist. My brother's an attorney in the White House. Skateboarder for Gatorade, touring the world with Pal Peralta, in these movies that break box office records. Crazy successful publisher who written this autobiography, addiction memoir, hundreds of thousands of copies. Done some things in life people equate to success, happiness, potentially even dream of doing. The flip side of that coin, the sad reality is I'm a 38-year-old homeless heroin addict standing in the basement of a Catholic Charities rehab that cost me $2 to get into. I'm in this room that has no electricity. So Brian hands me his phone. I'm shining his light on this box. The box is like coming apart at the seams because like the walls are sweating, and he's thumbing through these boxes and he's looking for some used underwear. He's looking for used underwear. I'm praying to God that he finds them, and he doesn't. But what he finds is a pair of size 40 women's sweatpants with no drawstring, a woman's tank top, and a pair of size 13 Jesus sandals. I don't know how alert or attentive any of you fine ladies and gentlemen are, but I'm not a woman and I do not wear a size 13. On that day in my life where I swore to God was the worst experience I could have ever had on this earth, little did I know was shaping out to be the best day of my life, filled with nothing but blessings and abundance. Because all of a sudden, this 19-year-old kid who 5 seconds ago I wanted to knock his head off his shoulders, because see, he was so happy, smiling from ear to ear, actually excited to see me. What Brian doesn't understand is that it's been a long time since I found anything to be optimistic, let alone smile about in life. So when you did it in my company, I took it personal. And all of a sudden, Brian's handing me women's clothes and shoes that did not fit. And at that very moment, I was overcome with a sense of willingness unlike anything a human has ever produced in my life. And what I know to be true today is that at that moment, when he handed me these women's clothes, I had just met the God of my understanding as a direct result of that gift of desperation. Unbeknownst to me, my pain was turning into my purpose right before my very eyes. So if anyone in this audience is sitting here and you're waiting for the blessing to take place, you're sitting here, you're suffering in silence, please allow me to be the first person to tell you it's already happened. I take the women's clothes, the shoes that did not fit, overcome with a sense of willingness unlike anything a human's ever produced. I cannot wait to get upstairs, to get this shower, get the Baltimore City smell off me. Never so excited to put women's clothing on in my life. Just dawned on me that the realization of what I do know is that I don't know. And my very best thinking has me in my 13th inpatient treatment center, getting a shower, wiping that Baltimore City smell off me, looking forward to put women's clothing on and shoes that do not fit. I get out of that shower and I fall into line and I successfully complete that 90-day treatment center. And things that they taught me in that facility were like, if I changed my perception, I could change my world. And that one day my defects, the very same thing that was killing me, one bag, one bottle, one needle, one pipe at a time, could be my assets. The very same thing that allows St. Mary's to reach out to me and say, hey, can you, Mr. Novak, come share your message of promise, hope, and freedom One that does not consist of a drink or a drug in a form of attraction rather than promotion, so that maybe when you finish talking, some of our students will say, if he can do it, there's no reason why I can't. I successfully completed that 90-day treatment center. From that treatment center, I went into a sober living house where I lived for 1 year. 90 days into my process of sobriety, my mother, the one that bought me a plot, my mother that served me with a restraining order, that woman, my mother that prayed for my death, my mother, the one that sold 3 homes to pay for 2 different treatment centers, she called me 90 days into my process of sobriety, and she said, Brandon, I hate when you come to visit me. And I said, why? She said, because I get so sad when you leave. Two months shy of my 2-year anniversary, I signed my release papers. See, I was on parole and probation from 18 to 38. Simply follow me from state to state, city to city. 2 months shy of my 2-year sober anniversary, I signed my release papers. I'm a free man that can go anywhere with anybody, anytime I like. I no longer live in that self-induced prison that consists of a 4-block radius that cost me $10 to get out of 1 bag of heroin at a time. I decided I wanted to get my 2-year medallion abroad. I flew to Paris to a 12-step meeting and picked up my medallion. On my 3rd-year anniversary, I bought a home. On my 4th-year anniversary, I decided I wanted to go to a 12-step meeting in Amsterdam and pick up my 4-year medallion. Most people don't equate Amsterdam and recovery. But for anybody who's sitting in this audience and they're saying to themselves, I might have a problem, but I'll be damned if I'm going to get sober and go sit in a 12-step meeting in a church for the rest of my life. I refused personally to accept that getting sober was enough. For me, getting sober was literally just the beginning of a beautiful life that I couldn't even envision, and I'm a pretty intelligent guy. And the truth about my story is, see, throughout my experience with the 12 steps, I've had a spiritual experience. The definition of a spiritual experience simply means a psychic change. So I, Brandon Novak, today no longer think how I thought sitting in my 13th inpatient treatment center listening to someone such as myself talk. I'm a free man that can go anywhere with anybody, anytime I like. Because what I keep up front is that I suffer with a disease called alcoholism, not alcoholism. And I cannot stay sober on yesterday's sobriety. My sobriety has a shelf life of 24 hours. So I wake up each day and do a few simple things along the way each day to maintain my sobriety. On my 5th-year anniversary, I listened to you like sober, strange, weird people. And you people would say things like, in order for you to keep what you have, it's imperative to continue to give it away. And I promised myself that when I found myself in a position where I was financially capable, I was going to recreate that sober living house that did for me what no other place had ever been able to do. And on my 5-year anniversary, literally the same day, I bought a house and we opened it up, and it was a men's sober living house called Novak's house. Novak's house at that time was one house with 10 beds. Today, there are 6 Novak's house with 65 beds. And my mission is to travel the nation to raise enough money to provide scholarships for any man seeking a safe, sober environment throughout their sobriety after completing a treatment. May 25th, 2022, I celebrated 7 years of continuous sobriety. What I've learned in my journey is that the disease of addiction is not a death sentence. And your history does not have to dictate your future, but it can absolutely guide and direct it. And as long as you're breathing, it is never too late. Sobriety truly has given to me everything that drugs and alcohol ever promised me. I'm going to close with this story. There's a father, and this father's working from home, and he's swamped in paperwork. And he's watching his child, and his child keeps banging his dad on the knee. Dad, take me out to play, take me out to play. Father, overwhelmed with all this paperwork, he's trying to think of an activity to consume his child so he can finish the work. And he's racking his brain, and the father walks into his office. And in his office, on his desk, is a big picture of a puzzle of the world map. And the father thinks to himself, I got it. The father completely dismantles the picture of the puzzle of the world map, and he throws it on the floor in hundreds of pieces. And he goes to the son and he said, son, when you put the picture of the puzzle of the world map back together, I'll take you out to play. Father leaves that office, surely thinking he bought 4 days at least, no questions asked. Not even 2 hours later, that kid comes back. Dad, I did it. Dad, I did it. Dad's thinking to himself, impossible. He walks back into that office. As sure as the day is long, the picture of the puzzle of the world maps put back together. Father, in complete disbelief, said, son, how did you do it? Son said, Dad, it was easy. Dad, it was so easy. Dad, it was so easy. On the back of the picture of that puzzle, the world map was a picture of a man. I put the man back together. The world fell back in place. Together we stand, divided I die. My name is Brandon Novak. Thank you for your time. This is always that strange, awkward first date kind of deal, like who makes the first move. I believe there's a question and answer to follow. If anyone has a question, I guess scream it. I don't really know how this is running, but I'll act like I do, and I'll answer. Oh, he's got a microphone in the back, this gentleman. So if anyone has a question, or you can, whatever, scream it.
Hi, thank you for coming out here. I just want to ask if you still skateboard. That's it.
If I what?
If you still skateboard and would like to.
As a matter of fact, I just finished filming a video part, which will be accompanied with that pro model that I never achieved because I pursued heroin instead. And I'm about to release both of them within the next 3 months. And this video part that I'm producing is the best work that I've done to date. I'm literally in the best shape physically, mentally, and spiritually at 44 than I was at like 17. So yes, that's it. Skateboarding has saved my life, man. Good luck. He's all the way up here. You don't have to go to the gym tomorrow. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Diane. I'm a grateful member of Al-Anon.
Oh, boy.
Hi.
Those people taught my mother that no was a complete sentence.
Woo! Could you speak just for a brief second about that, about the people in your life and how they contributed either to your continuing using or how they helped you, if they helped you?
They did. And you know, as a guy who's sober now and has a lot of loved ones in my lives that are caught up in the very same addiction, sometimes I fall prey to believing that I know what the best outcome for them is. All of a sudden, like I'm now the great I am, and I've figured out this complex problem that clearly no one else can see. And what I have to remind myself is that if anyone ever would have robbed me of my process, made it a little easier, made it a little softer, made it a little more comfortable, that we would not be here for my outcome tonight. So I come from a lineage of sober people, mentors, spiritual advisors that always instilled in me that you never get between an alcoholic and their bottom. And what's most important is to create boundaries. You know, mean what you say what you mean, because now I work in the field and I have a lot of mothers calling and saying, what do I do? And what I always suggest is see, for so many years, I was always talked to or talked at, but very rarely talked with. So a lot of times what I suggest is that you just kind of let the significant other talk. And what happens usually is they share so much that what they don't realize is that they're sharing so much they back themselves into a corner, and now you just use their words against them. You know? And most importantly, what I do on a daily basis is meet people where they're at, not where I believe they are or expect them to head. Because what I've learned in my life is the moment that I place an expectation on you, all I've just done is set myself up for an unfulfilled resentment. Because there's no person, place, or thing that will ever live up to my standard, including myself. And us 12-step sober people understand, maybe, hopefully, that resentments are our number one offender. And for our number one offender, it will allow us to drink. And to drink clearly is to die. Or even worse, not die and continue to wake up every day and do things against our will just to achieve another drink or a drug. So I just remain open-minded and keep a very close connection with my higher power. And I don't want that word to scare anyone off because it can be intimidating. I'm not a holy roller. I'm not religious at all. I'm insanely spiritual. And after all, at the end of my day, I'm going to leave that.
Amen. Thank you. That was powerful. 2 questions. When and where are you celebrating? And you said spiritual awakenings through your steps. How did that change your life, the step work?
What the 12 steps did for me was it lifted me of the obsession and ridded me of the desire to drink or drug. No human, place, or thing was ever able to do that. I've traveled the world. I've surrounded myself with people, and I've done a lot of things in hopes to rid myself of that mental obsession or that physical ailment. And nothing worked until a power greater than myself relieved me of bondage of self. Because what happened is that why I did bad for so many years with my alcoholism and my addiction is because I simply underestimated the opponent that I was up against. The fact that I underestimated the opponent that I was up against, and I was not armed with the proper facts about what I was diagnosed with, I was destined to fail. It was evident. So now with that healthy respect, armed with the knowledge, I'm very aware and understanding of what can or cannot happen depending upon the decision that I make. So I stick to the basics because what these people told me is that if I stick to the basics, God willing, I never have to go back to the basics. I don't get lost in the accessories of life, although I'd like to sometimes. But I did the worst thing that I could have ever done. And if anyone in here just sat through their first sober talk, please allow me to be the first person to apologize. Because what's going to happen if you are in here, you're suffering in silence, or you're openly saying I'm a sober guy, is try to go back out and have a glass of wine when it's cut with AA. Or try to shoot a bag of heroin, sniff a bag of coke when it's cut with NA. So you'll think of my lovely voice. People will call me and they're in a hotel room and they're getting loaded and they're like, I'm watching your video on the internet. And I'm like, your life is shit. If you're held up in a hotel room getting loaded and watching one of my sober talks, call it quits.
Hey, man, my name's Jonathan. 20-year dope habit and 8 years in recovery.
Yes, sir. Give it up for Jonathan.
Thank you. I've worked in MAT methadone programs for years.
Oh, and real quick, I'm sorry. Before I get away, where am I celebrating? But I'm listening to you. My brain
go
works
ahead.
weird.
Go ahead.
In 1 week, I will be opening up my own treatment center in Wilmington, Delaware, called Redemption Addiction Treatment Center. My goal is to continue to help as many people as possible without anyone ever telling me no. And what better way to do that than becoming an owner and operator of one? I can't tell me no, but
Yeah, right?
no doubt. But we've set up, we went through the whole chain of commands and we've set up a weekly 12-step meeting that will take place in that basement every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. It's called Old School at Redemption. Look it up, and I'll be celebrating there around the 25th of May. Back to the MAT.
All right, MAT. What do you think about it?
I'm a big fan of it.
Okay, right on. Because it was never really clear. I watched some of your videos and stuff, and I never heard you mention it. You have any experience with it? Additionally, I like what you said about the spiritual awakening. And can you talk more on that? I know with me, and it said a lot, and you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? And you're so beaten down, you're out of ideas, right? Your worst thinking's kind of got you where you're at, and you're just done, and you feel it, right? I've looked in the mirror many times and said to myself that I was done. But the last time I actually felt it, and it was almost like a weight was kind of lifted off your shoulders. You know what I'm saying?
Do I?
Yeah. So,
but the only sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Well, the only difference is that last time what he said was absolutely accurate. I knew in my heart of hearts I was done, but I also knew that I felt like that before. And when I would end up in a facility, the first person I'd do is I'd call my mother, I'd call my ex-fiance, I'd call my employer and say, I'm done. Things are different. I've seen the light and we are good to go.
Yeah. And you expect them to be like, oh, great. Right. You expect them to be like, oh, great. You're done.
So again, having had tried this so many times and knowing that my words held no more weight, that last attempt, everything that they had attempted to give me before, all these seeds that were planted made sense.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that the drugs and alcohol are not the problem. It's the thinking, the attitude, and the behavior. So what I decided to do for the first time in my life was not pick that phone up, not tell anyone how good I was doing. Actually, the exact opposite. I didn't correspond with anyone on the outside world. I lived in this facility. And what happened is my behavior started to change. And I no longer let my talking do my talking. For the first time in my life, I let my walking do my talking.
That's right.
And now my loved ones are like, he's not calling us. He's not selling us these dreams. He's actually, his behaviors are changing. And then for once, they started to believe in that. So that's that part.
Yeah.
You asked me like 8 questions.
I know. I'm sorry.
I love it.
I'm excited you're here, man.
It works
It's cool.
good with my brain, and thank you.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that. But back to the MAT. Why would I ever think with coming up on 8 years sober that I will be the humanitarian of the world and get that award? Right? I'm so late to catching up to life. I literally just got my first ever driver's license 3 years ago. I learned how to write my first check 4 years ago. Really disconnected. So why would I think with coming up on 8 years sober that I have the answer to all? I'm trying to do the best that I can with what I have. And what I know to be true is I debated for a lot of years. And in turn, I got loaded for a lot of years. I shot heroin for a lot of years. After all, acceptance is the answer to all. And if you, Mr. MAT, believe that methadone is what provides you a life worth waking up and getting out of bed for every morning, I'll drive you to the clinic. Because at the very least, with the fentanyl, the car fentanyl, and the reality of someone dying, at the very least, if you ever choose to walk off that to the sober side, then you'll be alive long enough to make that decision. That's it. That's it. Who am I to discredit or discount? And as a matter of fact, it makes me very upset when I hear people that say, I can't go to those meetings because when I say that I'm on Suboxone or methadone, they don't equate me as clean or sober. And that infuriates me. But where's my spirituality if I'm judging your spirituality? So I believe that that's part of their process too. And I just meet them where they're at. Yes, sir.
Hey, Brandon, thanks for coming, man. I watched your video the first time, April 2018. I've been to 15 treatment centers myself. I got clean November 5th, 2018. I follow you on social media. I said, if he ever comes to the area, I'm going to see him. My life is completely different. I can relate to a lot. My question to you would be, how is it kind of adapting to, you know, the Narcotics Anonymous world with who you are, you know what I mean, as a person going into meetings, you know what I mean? How are you able kind of to turn that off or, you know, trust what people say, hear people out and really, you know, we're more alike than different. How was that for you to get uncomfortable with so many people probably knowing you and realizing who you are, and still today?
Great question. Congratulations on your recovery, and thank you for supporting this cause, right? Because I can't do it alone, and my recovery and sobriety relies on you and your journey as well. So thank you for showing up. That's 80% of the fight right there, is just showing up. In the very beginning, it played out in my favor because people were very welcoming and accepting of me. And Lord knows I needed it, because I did not have the courage to walk up and say, "Hi, my name is Brandon." So I was very, very, very receptive to the welcoming and the people willing to guide me. But oddly enough, the longer I stayed sober, what I learned is that although I'm in like the social spotlight quite often, I'm really quite an introvert. And if it were up to me, I'd be at home with my 3 cats right now. And before COVID happened, I used to joke that if my cats could talk, I'd never leave. Moral of that story is be careful what you ask for. But the cool thing about it is when I ended up in a 12-step program, I ended up here because I lacked self-esteem. I had no idea how to gain self-esteem. It was evident, it was apparent that mine was non-existent. But I didn't know how to get it. But what I did is I surrounded myself with some really good mentors and people that I trusted and believed in, that I knew would guide me to the promised land, because they possess simple qualities that I wanted to achieve. And they said, "Okay, Brandon, we're going to help you get a job at this diner. And you're going to wash dishes at Mary Ann's Diner for $6 an hour under the table." Now, at the time, I believed that I should have been the president of the United States at the very least. A 38-year-old grown, accomplished man who's washing dishes in a diner for $6 an hour. But through doing these estimable acts, such as showing up early, staying late, taking that $6 an hour, opening my own bank account, paying my own $165 a week for my sober living, that then turned into bi-weekly payments, to then monthly payments, to then taking that checking account, first time I'd ever opened one in my own name, to then saying, "I would like to get a credit card." Never had a credit card in my life. They allowed me to get a pre-secured credit card with a $500 limit. That pre-secured credit card turned into a credit card. That credit card turned into like 6 with very high limits today, and an excellent credit score, and a business owner, a real estate owner. And I started saying what I meant and meaning what I say. And I started looking at you a little bit more in your eyes and speaking with conviction without fear of what you thought. And what happened, much like my sobriety and all the blessings in it, unbeknownst to me, through performing these estimable acts, I gained a sense of self-esteem. And my head was held a little bit higher. My circle came in a little bit tighter. And I could say, "You know what? Thank you all for inviting me out to dinner, but I'd like to just go home tonight." Simple things like that, that before I would like shoot a bag of heroin over. Really, really. You know, and so now I have a very select group of people that I call. My sponsor, believe it or not, is not one of the ones that get my calls when I'm having some issues in the beginning, because I have a really good network of people. And what I've done is I've freed my sponsor's time up so he can help some other people that need a little bit more hands-on than I do. You know, so I have like layers and levels of people that I call, and it's such a blessing. And I know that when I call these people, they'll answer, and whatever I need, they'll do the best that they can to come up with whatever I'm looking for. And that allows me to sleep at night. And that in turn allows my mother to sleep at night. And that's the deal. Yes, ma'am.
So you being in service and you being a power of example, how do you stay vigilant in your program? Because I mean, you are somebody that people look up to, and then you know, outside of the 12-step program and being in those other communities where you have to talk about this and trying to like, you know, mingle both of them together. Because I'm in service and I'm a part of a lot of things. So just how do you stay vigilant in your program when you're trying to be a power of example for others?
Well, the first thing that I do on a daily basis is realize that I'm no better than or less than anybody. We're merely walking shoulder to shoulder, trying to accomplish the same thing, which is another day sober. That's the very first thing. The very second thing is that I'm very structured in my life. My day starts out on my knees, followed by me making my bed, then to the gym at 6 a.m. for a 1-hour workout, followed by a 3-minute ice bath. Then I come home and I get into my daily ritual. And then I have a sponsor and I sponsor guys. And then I also step away and I go to the beach. I go skate. I go disconnect. Sometimes I go hang out with alcoholics that are drinking. It's wherever I find myself and whatever I need. But the beautiful thing is I have this insanely heightened sense of awareness. So much so that I wish that, I could just kind of be ignorant to some things and just, But yeah, ask me the same question tomorrow. I might give you a completely different answer. But right now, this is where I'm at. I love you. Thanks for the service you give to us. I did. I'm dealing with that right now. With the bathroom, the entrance was not wheelchair accessible, so we are opening the bathroom doors out literally as we speak. That's no doubt. Everyone deserves a chance, and that's why I'm opening a facility, because I don't want to have to ask someone else if they've called the contractors to open that door up. I'll do it. I believe we create the environment that we seek. How dare I get a chance at a new way of life and just forget what got me here? Doesn't even make sense. Congratulations, that's a big deal. I promise you it takes a lot longer to get 3 months sober than it will take to get 3 years sober. She's the MVP. Let's give it up for Mom. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I go to these 12-step meetings and I hear people say, I worked real hard for this seat. And that's great, but I don't agree with that. You know who worked real hard for my seat in my 12-step meeting? My mother, my employer, my significant, anyone that crossed my path worked real hard for that seat, because if justice was due, Mom, I'd be dead years ago. So thank you for loving him until he hopefully learns how to love himself. Sure. I don't want you to get caught up on what I say, because unfortunately, this is not a black and white one-size-fits-all that comes with this instruction manual. And if you read this manual, you'll get this outcome. A lot of things had to align and correlate until one day, and I don't even know the day. I don't know where I was at or what I was doing, but what happened is I realized that for the first time in a whole day, 9 hours, I didn't think about getting high one time. And it happened. But just like all the other blessings in my life, it happened unbeknownst to me, but I was bought in completely. I had a sponsor. I was working the steps. I was becoming self-sufficient. I was no longer calling Mom and telling her how great I was doing. Look at me, take me to the mall now. And, I get it. You spot it, you got it. I got it. Let your walk do your talk. I love you. I'm going to pray for you. Love you, Mama.
That was absolutely, absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your powerful story, and really just being so inspiring. We all appreciate you and are grateful. I think Mr. Novak said it best when he said, what did you say? You said from pain to purpose. And truly this evening, I think we all, every single one of us, shared your pain. But even more so, I hope we all, every single one of us, share your purpose as well. And I think your purpose is something that shines from you. And I hope we can take it on and find our purpose and add to the incredible inspiration you're already providing the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for being here on this very, very special evening. We really appreciate all of your time, your questions, and for all of you who shared your stories as well. Thank you. If you're interested, we have Narcan readily available. Today, big milestone, the FDA approved over-the-counter Narcan. Yes. And our St. Mary's County Health Department will continue to distribute it for free as well. So we have tables outside with Narcan materials. We have our own harm reduction program. We will meet you where you're at. And we definitely support the whole spectrum of meeting people where they're at and helping them in their own individual path towards recovery. Thank you very much. And thank you again. And really, really, anything we can do in St. Mary's County, we'd love to have one of your Novak's houses here as well.
Here, if anybody wants to come up, say hi, take a picture, you just cruise up and I'll be